Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. We have a bombshell story that broke last night from Reality Steve, Spoiler King. He continues to be the premier journalist in Bachelor Nation, doing some digging, very simple digging, that the Bachelor producers could have done. He was able to find a restraining order that contestant Devin had put on against him several years ago. We're going to get into that order, why it existed, why the producers probably didn't know about it. I'm not letting them off the hook, though. They will have to respond. So far, there has been no mainstream coverage. And by that, I mean Us Weekly, Variety, no coverage. I think there will be some. I wouldn't be surprised if Variety covers this. And it's a story that is more important than us just talking about it. It's about systemic change and not letting stuff like this happen in the future. We'll get into the X's and O's of what was in this restraining order. But the show is supposed to be, I say this because it's not, it's supposed to be about a bachelor or bachelorette, a real catch. Somebody, can you believe they're still single? And then they're vying for love with a bunch of hopefuls. Real highly nominated people in the dating sphere. And, it falls short of that year after year. And you say, well, how come the show can't vet everybody? Listen, if these contestants were employees of Warner Brothers, they would have probably more background checks done, but they're not. They're like freelance contestants. Their liability isn't there. And as corporations are psychopathic, we talk about this all the time. Psychopathic in the sense that, who are we supposed to be mad at? Janie and casting? We don't know. Robert Mills? I mean, who do you hold accountable? And of course, you have to kind of get to the head of the snake here and go all the way to the top and say, okay, well, someone needs to respond to this work that Reality Steve did here to provide a real cautionary tale to, not having, at the bare minimum, contestants that have had restraining orders put on them by their exes, at the bare minimum. So anyhow, Reality Steve last night put together this, like I said, bombshell video. It's gotten a ton of views. Oh my gosh, really, just 30,000 unbelievable views. So everyone's checking this out. So as far as my commentary, of course, I'm not going to go over every single thing he went over, but everyone's shared it. BachelorNation.scoop put some of the text, the text here to read, and some of them we'll have to kind of sift through. But it's some real bonkers stuff. So Devin had a restraining order filed against him from an ex-girlfriend in college. This is back in 2017. He violated the restraining order. Hold on one second while I kind of work on my graphics here. He violated the restraining order and several times, 4 times they say, and lit the restraining order on fire in front of his ex-girlfriend's home. Now, I personally don't know when you put together these sworn affidavits, as far as I know, and again, I'm saying this because I'm not a lawyer, and I have to be careful here after last year, getting threatened with defamation lawsuits and whatnot. I got to be careful here. When a affidavit comes out, you swear that you're telling the truth. Now, that doesn't mean you always are, but I think it's safe to say the benefit of the doubt should be put onto the person here filing the restraining order. And in some, again, this is so different than a Clayton Eckert case where his ex-fling filed a restraining order and he never violated it. He was like, I want nothing to do with you. In this case, if this is true, which it appears to be, I'm saying this trying to take any liability off of me here. Forgive me for not wanting another lawsuit. If this is true, what you have is 4 times he knew I can't go near her, and he did. One, I guess, was a DUI where he ends up having the officer drive him, or gives the address of his ex, maybe hoping she would bail him out. Real scary stuff. So this is the family court stuff, and this is the reason it's put in place. So I'm going to read all of this for you here, but here's what Steve had to say about finding the story.
Sends me a message saying something there, and then saying she has a restraining order against him. I said, whoa, from how long ago? What happened? Back in college, when they were at LSU, he tried to break into her house, broke her window after she had broke up with him. he then lit the restraining order on fire in front of her house.
So this is why I don't know if that's a fact, because this is told to reality, Steve. It might be in the court documents. We're about to check it all out together.
Do they not do background checks on these guys? Damn. And I said, is the restraining order still active? Could I look it up?
So my guess is it's not still active, because they're normally 2 years, although you can get one that's longer if you really feel, usually I think they give them for a couple years to kind of let the relationship, person move away and whatever. Now some of our friends here, Kelly Johns says, casting department should be fired. Someone should have to pay the price here. I don't know who it is. Casting, sometimes in some shows, it's a third party that's hired. Here's 400 men, and they bring them together, and then the producers make the final pick. So I don't know who's at fault here. I'm not gonna say who, but somebody high up in Bachelor should very much be addressing why they weren't able to figure this out. Now, just because something is publicly available doesn't always mean everyone knows that. You'd have to go out and look for it. What that means is every single contestant, you're going to pay the fee to do a background check on them. I mean, every house, when you rent a home or rent an apartment, you have to do these background checks. How could they have not done this? And my assumption is the background check that Reality Steve did was pretty easy. You can go to his video where he kind of explains it. Pretty easy. Pay $25, gives you some simple stuff. So I'm assuming this would have popped up. Now, could you make an argument that some of this was expunged and the only way that Steve found it was because there was a disgruntled ex-friend pointed him in the right direction? Maybe. You could maybe make that argument. I truly don't know the ins and outs of this. A lot of times when there's like a celebrity divorce, you would never know somebody filed for divorce if their PR people didn't call TMZ and say, hey, you're going to want to look into this case number here at the LA Superior Court. Do you know what I mean? Unless there's a clerk that's fans of Justin Bieber, and oh my gosh, these things can fall through the cracks. They can if it doesn't show up in a search. So you can't possibly expect Bachelor casting to look into every single municipality where everyone lived and do and target a research there. So I'm not holding them. I'm just saying I think at the very least, people need more information with regards to the proprietary method that Bachelor producers use to get these contestants on air. Because it's one thing if someone had, said something in tweets years ago, and it's another when someone's actually shown to be a threat. And at the very least, we need to protect our leads and the women of The Bachelor. Because, let's be quite honest, most of the DV that you should be worried about is perpetuated from a man onto a woman. Do you understand? So in this case, it's sure, when you have The Bachelor, you should do a background check on the 30 plus ladies that go on the show. But when you have a Bachelorette, you need to button it down, and you need to get the majority of men that don't have restraining orders on them. The majority, you know what I mean? How could this fall through the cracks like this? And again, I don't have answers. So I'm going to share a few different clips of what Reality Steve had to say. Of course, always go support the source material. He really did a good job. This is why, I've been telling Steve ever since I've known him, hey, you got to get on YouTube. We need to get you on there. And, of course, old Boomer Steve, God bless you, did a great impression of me last night. Just really fire him up, send him to SNL. But Steve is I don't know how to do it. And we set him up, and now he can give his opinion, not just on an audio format, but video. So I'm very happy to have him here, because this is what you need. This is a sort of the proper dissension that you need in the series, because if the show's not going to do this work while it's too late, you kind of have to make an example out of someone. And by the way, is there a story in which Devon's can explain all this? I don't think so. And my critical thinking that I've had literally since I've started this channel is to take the time and wait for stuff to come out, right? So after the show, everyone wanted to be mad at him. And I said, my lack of judgment of him is not an endorsement of him. Now, some people that want you to just jump onto their mob, oh, how dare you? No. My lack of endorsement of him is not, my lack of judgment is not an endorsement of him. At this point, we're seeing information that's actual facts, not just a he said, she said, which is looking, and by facts, I mean somebody took the time to file this and make sure, that this was on record. This is the real deal.
Okay, you'll see at the top, petitioner blacked out. Defendant Devon Strader. This was filed on 5/2, and basically, this is the ex saying he has violated the restraining order I had against him that you gave to him on 4/12. Defendant was served a copy with the above-mentioned order of injunction, and you can see right here, temporary restraining order, on April 12th, 2017. And this is what she wrote.
And by the way, I've had people say, oh, it's hard to get a restraining order. From all that I've read and seen, it's not. If you dated somebody and you had been intimate, the temporary restraining order is the judge's way of saying, okay, for the next 28 days, you're not allowed near this person until we figure it out. And then you'll get the permanent, and then you'll get an actual trial. That's as far as I know. So I don't think it's the bar isn't extremely high to get a temporary restraining order. Most people don't take advantage of this system. Of course, we'll have our next video be about Laura Owens, someone who was getting a restraining order against everyone, including trying to get one against me, someone she never met. The only way you get your temporary restraining order not approved is if you weren't a partner of someone. But this is the way the court works. They say, look, if you guys had dated before, if you had been intimate, if you know each other in the physical sense and you feel threatened, temporarily knock it off. 28 days, 1 month, whatever the terms are, we'll come back. No going near that person until then, and then you can have your defense. So he would have had his defense, but he violated it probably before he could even get his defense in.
Now, it's a little bit hard to read, but I typed it out because I had a better, clearer version of it. So let me pull this up so I can just read it.
All right, so we're going to let Steve...
She says in this...
Dramatic silence.
I am holding Devon Strader in contempt for violating the restraining order numerous times again.
Wow.
1, Friday the 21st. Asked to talk to me in the bar.
Okay, so that's 4 days after the initial temporary restraining order.
I drunkenly agreed. Huge mistake. Sunday the 23rd. Called me twice. Once in the morning, once in the afternoon. Put a letter in my mailbox confessing his love. I was the best thing that happened to him. He's sorry.
Now, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if phone calls are part of the TRO. I'm assuming they would be. I'm assuming it'd be no contact. That's what I would assume. So I'm assuming, these are all, so far we have 2 phone calls, drunk in the bar, letter. So we have four instances where I'm assuming they violated the restraining order. I didn't, Louisiana laws, I don't know if there's anyone in the comment section, or email me if you're a lawyer in family law in Louisiana, but it seems as though these are very credible accounts and good, real bookkeeping of the times in which he violated.
I think that says okay. Very familiar. Here's a doozy. Tuesday the 25th, 2 days later from that, received a knock on my door at 4:30 a.m. because Devin was arrested for a DWI.
Wow.
Before we move on, let me show you. She's saying on Tuesday, April 25th, 2017, Devin was arrested for a DWI. Here is that DWI from the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office.
So he's got that information, and apparently Devin gives the address. I mean, was he living at home? He didn't want the, to get driven. What the hell is going on here? Could you imagine? Can you imagine a kerfuffle so big as you violate your restraining order because you had the sheriffs bring you to the home you're not allowed to be at? Because you got a DUI. This is like a double jeopardy. Wow. Not double jeopardy the law, but okay.
He was arrested for a DWI and told the cop I was his girlfriend and he wanted to talk to me so I could bail him out of jail. I told cop I had a restraining order.
Good.
Where is it? I told cop I had a restraining order on him. And the cop apologized for waking me up.
Okay.
I then received 4 phone calls from Devin after the cop left with him. Later that day, he knocked on my door around, I think, 1:50 p.m. and called me 4 times while ringing the doorbell. Monday the 1st, he sent me a message on GroupMe, which is one of those group chats, with another novel on how much he loves me and wants to talk to me and swears this will be the last time. He also called me at 10 a.m. shortly after sending the messages.
So, as far as the instances of violating the restraining order, again, every restraining order might have different rules to it, but here I'm Googling, under the terms of a restraining order, you are barred from all contact with a protected person, even if he or she attempts to contact you first. That means that you can be charged with a protective order violation simply by responding to a text message from a victim or even picking up the phone if he or she calls. So yeah, even that drunk, even if she, consents at the bar to talk to him, it's still a violation because that protective order was in place, already. Now, as you guys know, we've literally covered restraining orders in Bachelor Nation for years. They don't happen often, but we have at least 3-4 examples. We have the Clayton Eckerd and we all have the Colton Underwood. The Colton Underwood was the temporary restraining order was placed on him by Cassie Randolph because she had alleged that he had placed a tracking device under the trunk of her car. And we shared all of those damning informations where Colton Underwood pretty much faked being stalked. It was an absolute wild story. It was really the first expose I've ever covered in Bachelor Nation that received, I would say mainstream attention. It got 500,000 views. So, but what's interesting there is like these restraining orders, they are there to protect, and they might not protect you in the moment. Like Devin, sure, yeah, he might still show up, but they protect you on paper at the very least because it's another instance where you can say, look, here's the paper trail. He was told no formally through the law, no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And then star, all caps. Please, this has to stop.
Wow.
I can't live my life with him continuing to contact me, even with a restraining order.
And by the way, this is so heartbreaking because there was a story recently here in Tennessee where a woman had a restraining order on her ex. He was put in prison, let out on bail, and ended up, murdering her. And these stories don't always have a happy ending. Now, while this doesn't have a happy ending, at least she's alive. At least she was able to find her peace after all of this. But whenever, a lot of times people will say, oh, you got to report things. It's like, here she is begging people to take this seriously. And here we have a guy that was just led into, in a very privileged way, Bachelor Nation. The show teased him, edited him, gave him a pretty decent edit, and he won. And Jen didn't know any of this. And look, the previous arguments about who dumped who at what time, that's like your low-level, soft villain of Bachelor Nation. Oh, you're a bad guy. You led me on. You gas, those types of things. This is the real deal. And I'm not to make light of the other stuff. Everything's got a different degree of sort of severity that's attached to it. This is the real deal. And I think of my wife. I think of my mom, who, my mom left my father. He struggled with PTSD and she got away from him. And I think of the people that need the system to help them. And you just hope that this was the end of it, where you get the hint, because I'm sure you don't want to have to take this sort of intervention. But boy, as you're about to see, Devin sure ruffled feathers to the point where, what are they, 7 years later, right? 7 years later, there is the friend of this lady who is making sure the attention gets put on this. So we'll get to that after Steve's done reading this document.
So, I mean, look, while I would have liked to talk to the ex, I hate that this happened to her, but honestly, this story, it doesn't need to be about her. It sucks what happened to her, but I don't need her to confirm these documents.
Right. So these documents exist, and Steve had mentioned he reached out to her twice, and she did not want to participate, or at least didn't respond at all. So unless there's some wild scenario, you know what I mean? I don't want to leave any room for that scenario. You know, we talk about grace on the show when someone doesn't get to share their story or has a bad tell-all or whatnot. This is not on me or any audience members to try to sift through to find the positives here. It's a scary story. And look, Devin can go on and move on with his life, but this is a dating reality show that's supposed to be the pinnacle of, whatever. I already kind of fluffed it up, right? That's what it's supposed to be. So yeah, he can go move on with his life and do better and this, that, and the other. But this, you can't be surprised that this lingers. So he shared this moment where he kind of, found out what the deal was. And we already covered this where she, broke into his house and whatnot. But I have the documents here. So again, they're not the greatest, but here's the documents from the police officer. I, Reese Jenkins, with the Baton Rouge Police Department, certify under oath, based on the information outlined below, that there is probable cause to believe Devin did commit a count of simple burglary of an inhabited dwelling, which is a felony within the state and parish at the jurisdiction level. So here it is. Let's see if we can read this for you. On March 19th, 2017. So Steve had all of these, he had this violation of the restraining order was from April 17th, I think here. Let's go back to it. Yeah, from April 17th. Filed on April 12th, 2017. Right. So it was filed on May 2nd. So again, this is several months after the initial break-in happened. Again, I'm just trying to get my timeline right because a lot of times I kind of feel as if you're under the spell of your ex. And I couldn't imagine what people go through, but you think, okay, well, so-and-so broke into my house, but we were, and then one thing after another. And finally, like she reached on her tipping point there on May 2nd, 2017, she goes, all right, enough is enough. Enough is enough. He did this, he did that. He reached out to me here. He dropped a letter off. These are all violations, and then you report it. So it's not always as linear as people want it to be because, I'm sure she didn't want to be put in a position where she had to go to the police and deal with this. I'm sure there were conversations that existed before then to say, hey, stop, leave me alone. And I'm sure those weren't listened to. And that's why you have to kind of go to this length. On March 19th, 2017, officers responded to this her in reference to a burglary where the victim advised the officer that she had been out of town and came home to find her room burglarized. She stated that her and the defendant had just recently broken up and that he lived just 2 doors down from her. She also stated that the defendant never has had a key or unaccompanied access to an apartment while they were dating. I began to, and again, this is from the police officer. I began to investigate this case and spoke with the officer that responded to this call. He informed me that the victim's room was the only room in the residence that appeared to have been rifled through. He also stated that there was a jewelry box that had been gone through a broken bottle of perfume. A makeup tray was dumped out and a diamond necklace was stolen during the burglary. The necklace that was taken had been one that the defendant had bought her when they were still dating. The necklace was the only thing reported stolen. You know what's really interesting here? We shared a TikTok from an ex, I'm assuming it's a different ex, from high school, where he was like this, I guess, love bombing romantic. So it lines up, I guess, from what we saw on the show. Listen, you give someone a gift, that's theirs. That's theirs. That's how gifts work. You don't get to come in and say you're taking it back. You know what I mean? You just don't get to do that. That is burglary. Devin, I guess he's a felon now. Now, I don't know if he was convicted of anything. So anyway, now we have this text message, and there are slurs here. We're gonna talk about this, but be kind of sensitive. So Devin on April 22nd, 2017, wrote this to whom I guess we believe to be the gay friend. And his sexuality does matter because we see the slurs here. When I first read it, I thought he was talking to a friend of his. because he's like, see you sooner. I thought he was like, all right, I'll see you soon. And then, you read this, you go, oh my, and I read it on my phone, but you read this and you go, oh my gosh, these are threats. Devin's making a threat to the friend of the person who has filed a restraining order against him. Hey homo, guess who's getting their effing a licked next time I see you. I'm assuming he meant kicked. Kicked. Sorry, don't want you getting confused. See you sooner than you think. P word. Surprised someone puts their D in that foul mouth of yours. Keep my and out of that S-hole, especially when dealing with me. Educate yourself on the situation, gay boy. So the confidence of Devin to go on the show, having had this dark, toxic, abusive story going on, is really mind-blowing. What sort of defense he'll have, I don't know. There's a little bit more to get into. The sort of idea about how this possibly could have been expunged. The court further examined the accused as to his educational background and as to whether or not he understood his rights and the waiver of those rights. Whereupon the court, finding a factual basis for the plea and being of the opinion that the accused understood the significance of his plea and was knowingly, intentionally, and intelligently waiving his right to plead not guilty, ruled that it would accept the defendant's guilty plea. So he pleads guilty. And then with that guilty plea, when they get you to plead guilty, there's always some contingency. Under the provisions of the criminal procedure, the court deferred the imposition of sentence in this matter for a period of 1 year and placed the accused on unsupervised probation for that period with the special conditions of probation that the accused remain arrest and conviction free, remain drug alcohol free, and submit to random drug testing as directed, pay the court cost of $231, perform 30 hours of community service work at LSU, library, or church, pay a $100 fine, complete a court-effective decision-making class, maintain gainful employment, and no contact or communication with victim. At the end of the aforementioned probationary period, the court will review the record of the accused and determine whether sentence is to be imposed or the guilty plea vacated and this charge dismissed. Notice was given to the accused to return for sentencing review on November 7th, 2017. My guess is, given this is all the information I have, is that he did not commit any other penalties. He did not test positive for drugs, or he remained conviction free, and that they did not try him after that. That's my guess. Now, could it be that because they didn't try him, that's why he didn't have a record on him when it comes to background searches? Maybe. I truly don't know. So with the case of the show, could the show, and I say the show, the producers, could they reasonably have looked into every contestant and this didn't pop up? Maybe. I just don't know. I don't know what to tell people. I just don't know. That's not me in any way defending anything that happened here. Hard stop. With this information we have here, he should not have been allowed on the show. Now, should he be allowed to go live his life? Well, if he did all the things that they asked, yeah, he should be able to go move on with his life. Hopefully learning his lesson, learning if he's got a drug problem or learning whatever issues he has. Sure. But that doesn't mean you have the privilege to go on the show. You still get your First Amendment rights to go speak. You probably don't get your Second Amendment rights, depending on the state. I don't know how that works. But if he wasn't convicted of a felony, you get to vote. You get to do all these things. You get to go in society. But you also get exposed if you go on reality TV. You get exposed by Reality Steve. That's just how it works. So Sam McKinney said, yikes. Yeah, it turns out Devin's main thing involved restraining orders, which we did not know. Don't make that your main thing. So someone said, apologies in advance if this was already released aside from everything else. First-time poster, after seeing all the revelations of Devin's past, I remembered I signed up for a Truth Finder account for fun one day and decided to put it to use. Upon my research, I also found out that Devin had a warrant out for his arrest as well as a charge named Fugitive from Justice Burglary in the state of Louisiana in 2017 with the bond set at $10,000. This is also alleged, but it's insane. Me, a random person, was able to find this info within 5 seconds, but the production couldn't have edited him better. Well, if this is true, if someone was able to find that easily, then yeah, that is on the production. If that was, I'm operating under the question of whether or not production didn't see it because it was expunged because, whatever, but if this is the case, then that is just terrible. Now, last night when Reality Steve was going live, someone in the comment section claiming to be Devin said they're going to be going on Nick's podcast this Thursday. I saw that on Thursday, Devin was going to be on Nick's show. If this is true, shame on Nick for giving him a platform. I'd also like to know how Nick keeps getting away with this kind of thing. Now, people are allowed to interview Devin if they so choose. I personally wouldn't. I don't need it in my life. I'm a dad to a 4-month-old. I'm trying to, I'm late to making this video because we had a moment. The baby didn't sleep well and I was, whatever. No one cares. It doesn't matter. But the point of what I'm saying is there's a lot of drama that's going to be attached to the rest of this story, whether Devin does share his side or not. I'm not one of the, my general belief is to not worry about platforming people. It's like, look, if he wants to go, he's not going to lose his social media. If he wants to go get grilled by a podcaster, so be it. So be it. People can decide to listen or not. It's like if there's a really bad restaurant in town. All right, the food sucks. If the food sucks, just don't consume it. But there may be more to the story, and it may be worse for Devin. So when he posted the other day saying, "Are we done?" No, we're not. And again, big shout out to Reality Steve. You can go donate to his channel. You can go subscribe to his podcast. You can go check out his YouTube channel for continuing to do the work that the producers should have done all along, which is try to make the show, a safe place for people to try to find love. I know it's a stupid show, but at the very least, you shouldn't worry if the person you're falling for, you shouldn't be like, well, I'm down to my final 3. Bring out Neal Lane and let's do a Google check. I need a background check on this guy. You should assume that that's already been done. Right. All right. I got more content coming your way. I'll be on Patreon right after this, patreon.com/Dave Neal, where we will discuss more of this and also the insane update on the Clayton Echard story. That's right. There is an update. We'll have that for you next.